Yeah.
All right. So we are only having this podcast to talk about the Masters. Can you tell me what happened?
I would say Scheffler was in like rookie year form,
No,
and
the disrespect, man.
I mean everybody. I mean I don't know. Everybody just kind of played their B game, C game,
Ooh.
and Rory found a way to not choke. I mean he tried to choke. He tried multiple times.
Hey. He got a broken clock is right twice a day, and that was my twice a day moment. So what was it? Was it 13, 14 years in a row now? I've been picking Rory McIlroy, and I was finally correct.
Yeah, but see the problem with Rory is as soon as he won it, he immediately started saying like, "Well, what are you guys going to talk about next year?" Like, there's no need for that, man. Just enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Well, okay, I do agree with that because what was weird to me, and then we'll jump off this real quick. I had to have a funny about Rory, but what was weird to me, I talked about this a good bit with my dad. We were watching the end of it because he knows how much I've been pulling for Rory, but I expected not a 2019 level reception when he comes off the green and makes that walk to go sign the card and all the players are around. Didn't expect that. Nobody expects what Tiger Woods got in 2019. But it was Shane Lowry and Tommy Fleetwood and nobody else. And
Yeah.
I was surprised by that. I thought there would be more guys, not just like all the Americans or whatever, but I thought there would be more of a player peer reception than there was.
Nah. Nah. Then the whole thing with his wife was weird,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well,
I digress.
he got his green jacket, and
Yeah,
now
we'll leave him alone.
I don't know who to now. I don't know who to pick going forward. I don't know. I won't know what to do next year when I ultimately am watching it from home because I'll never win the lottery. So I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And Scheffler ties the record and goes 31 under today.
That was
So
insane
yeah,
at
Rory
his
better
hometown
enjoy it.
event.
Rory better enjoy this. It'll never happen again.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk football now? I guess.
Sure, sure.
I was. I've been to one as of this recording. We're two spring practices in. What do you know and what do you don't?
Mm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's been good. Obviously you got a veteran quarterback. I guess has got some experience, so that masks a lot of the a lot of the things that are going on. But you gotta spring. You gotta you start to piece together the O line. You got a really good core group of defensive players back, especially nose and then the box. You got a couple secondary guys that are had a lot of experience, 2 3 year starters. So there's a lot, and your kicker's back. So there's a lot. I would say it's a little bit more um, continuity right now than it was this time last year. Last year was you got a new quarterback. It's always bumpy with that. But now that he's got a full year under his belt, seems to be running a little bit smoother, especially on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah. Are y'all pretty young this year? Do you? I mean, like you've got guys back, but like just classification wise, are you pretty young? Or are you kind of you got some elder guys or what? Where do you kind of lie right now?
Well, we've got, I would say, a good mixture. I mean, you've got a good group of 26 guys that have you got some experience and some pretty good players, and then the group that's going to be juniors. There's a lot of good players in that group,
Yeah.
and that played last year as sophomores. Now they're playing as juniors. And then we've got probably maybe two or three ninth graders that played a little bit last. Well, one of them played every game last year at left tackle, and then obviously, so we got a couple of sophomores that'll be playing this year as well. So it's kind of a mixture. I wouldn't say we're a heavily senior class. It's more kind of spaced out than anything.
Interesting. What have you seen? I wanted to ask this. You mentioned Aaron just having more, obviously more experience. He's got a year under his belt as the starter. What's changed for him? Not necessarily mechanics wise, but up here wise so far. What kind of difference have you seen so far?
Yeah, I would say everything has maybe slowed down just a little bit, and just the process of play coming in from the sideline, and last year I would say he was more concerned about what he had to do. What was the play, what was the motion, all that stuff, and now he can direct traffic a little bit more and speak to the kids that are on the field that maybe are having trouble picking up the signal or whatever, or they were down the field, didn't get the signal, and he can direct traffic a little bit more. So I would just say the process of in between plays has kind of slowed down. Obviously, you know, reading coverages, I would say he's getting better in that department as well. So everything was just new for him last year. Every piece of playing quarterback was new last year, and so now he's familiar with a lot of different areas of playing quarterback. So he's really grown.
That's good. I was out there. I think I already said this, but I was out there. Was that Friday? Friday I was out there. No, Thursday. Thursday I was out there and saw y'all practicing. That midnight alley is
Yeah.
is no joke. That like I was standing there with Moxie and I was like, dude, I'm kind of tired just watching these guys get after it in this. Is that it? Like I know that's kind of a drill that's kind of you told me it like took off at what Northern Alabama, but it uh
hmm
the guys seem to like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was new. That was our first time to do it. And so I think we've got to refine it just a little bit, just on maybe the layout of where the offensive guys are. But I think it simulates a real football play. It's not just your standard, Oklahoma drill where everything's just straight line ahead of you, which isn't really that realistic in football. Everything's kind of, sideline to sideline and space and so there was a lot of good stuff that we saw in that drill. And anytime you bring kind of new things to practice that kids haven't seen or done before, they like it. I think if it gets Coach Richardson, he's the middle linebacker coach, the inside linebacker coach. If it gets his approval, then it's a good drill. And I would say it was more defensive oriented.
Okay.
So he liked it.
Yeah, yeah, I could see him liking it. Saw Jake liking it a good bit. Even saw you liking it a time or two. I
Yeah,
think I
yeah.
think I
I
only
have,
saw one guy get through to me into the end zone, maybe. So
yeah. We've got a little bit of tweaking to do with that drill because we told them initially there's no cutback with the running back, which isn't that also isn't realistic. And so we'll try to refine it for tomorrow.
and I will see y'all again tomorrow. I think, which is if people are listening to this, it's today. But let's talk about why people are gonna maybe why I'm coming around, why a trustful guy is showing up at Clay-Chalkville football practices. People who don't listen to this will be new to them, but I think I've laid it on pretty thick lately. I think it's obvious, but I'm gonna be hanging out with you guys a lot this spring and summer and all fall for a different type of a different type of coverage than I've ever done. I'm gonna I'm gonna try to put Clay into a book. Um, Still not quite sure exactly what it looks like. I'm gonna need y'all's help with that, but um, I really want to dive into community. Obviously, like this isn't going to be like, oh, here's 10 regular season games told in a book. Like that's stupid. But it's I really want to drive at what this place is, not just within the walls of the high school, but the the parameters of the city itself, and identity and culture and tradition and legacy and all those fun things that I've kind of always really liked to write about. Does Clay deserve a book?
I think so. I think so. Um, it'll be interesting because I'm sure there's some, maybe some things that you've got kind of on your radar, and then as the summer progresses and the season starts, there's different storylines that come up, and so who knows? Who I hope it's a special book. Honestly, I really do.
Yeah, yeah. You asked me the other day, is it going to be like 50 pages? I was like, no, no. It'll be more than that. I don't know how many it'll be. I'm looking at my other screen here. I'm finishing up because I joked with you. I had to finish my Trustful book before I could go to a Clay book, but that book's like 450 pages. This will not be that, but
You wrote
you
a
know,
450-page book.
I wrote a 450 page book. It's cool. I'm not going to say I'm not going to announce it on here when it'll be out, but it's all about Trustful's Cahaba project because I'm a history guy as well as sports
Yeah.
guy, but it's a big long history heritage, you know, uh, very much takes what I did like 11 years ago in a brief Trustful history book and takes the most historic resource Trustful has, the Cahaba Project, and tells it from beginning till like yesterday. Um, so it's got a lot of history, a lot of research, that kind of thing, but it's got a ton of people stories and personal stories and stuff like that mixed in as well. So I
How
actually
about that?
I just finished approving it with the designer people, so got to see the covers front and back for the first time today. Had already like yesterday approved the all the interior of the book and stuff like that. So that thing will be coming out. So it had been 5 years since my last book published, so I figured, hey, let's publish this one, and the next day just start on a new one. Apparently, that's what I've decided.
Well, I'm probably gonna pass on the 452-page Cahaba project. Um,
I'm gonna cut this out.
but I'm sure it's good though. I'm sure it's really good.
I'm proud of it. I get it. It's for a very
Well, I'm
it's
proud of you.
well, thank you. I write very people pronounce it niche. I hate pronouncing it that way. Very niche stuff, and that's obviously for a very like there's a very key target area for that, but it's been several years of work, and I'm more than people are like asking me today. They're like, "Are you excited?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm excited, but it's more relief. I'm glad it's daggone done. I, I'm so glad it's done, and I can move on to standing on a sideline and just a different topic."
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So, um, anyway, not like I said, not just the football, but certainly the community. And I don't know what it is. Is there's always been a I'm going to get in trouble with the Trustful people, but there's always been something to me about Clay, and I can't define it. Like I talked about this a lot on a recent podcast with Kent Babb that he wrote a book called Across the River that came out a few years ago, and he wrote about a high school football program in Louisiana. And now his theme throughout, and I have not finished this book, but his themes are a lot of the like murders and violence in New Orleans, and kind of following that trend as well as the high school football team in that area. but it's always been something to me about Clay, just kind of the way Clay-Chalkville, middle and high school kind of came out of thin air in a way back in the 90s. I mean, you're obviously well versed in that as someone who moved over there from Tarrant, but just the way it kind of came out of nowhere. Obviously, the football success, that's one thing, but the way Clay hasn't seemed to change a whole lot. And I don't mean like played behind or something like that, but I mean, it kind of, to me at least, kind of knows what it is and kind of leans into it. And it's a very people focused area. And, I really want to drive at that, and obviously some of the history there, not just football, but everything, and kind of where Clay is going. Like, I mean, y'all have had excavators moving in recently. Like, y'all are about to have some big change in the not too distant future
Yeah.
with a new school and a new stadium and down the road and all that. So I really want to, like, follow the season, but I also want to tell these stories along the way of what Clay is, what it was, what it's becoming, that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
give me more than yeah for a book.
Yeah. I don't, who knows where it's going,
Yeah, yeah,
I, 20, really, let's say 30 years ago, I don't think you could have projected, the way the population kind of moved, um, in this direction toward Trussville, towards Leeds, Clay and Chalkville. Center Point was the epicenter of
hmm,
the universe, when I was a kid. Like,
yeah,
I mean, if you were going to Walmart or Kmart, like you were going to Roebuck and Center Point, and,
oh yeah.
yeah. And so it's weird that, everything is kind of filtered this way for whatever reason. But there is a sense that, there is, a lot of the things, the internal parts of Clay, especially at the school, faces change, but a lot of times the regimes don't change. And so it'll be like a faction of a certain regime will remain. And so a lot of the things and the standards in which way in which things run kind of remain the same. I was telling somebody the other day, one of the college coaches, that football really, just in the field house, like it's really not that much different since 2009. It's really been
Yeah.
very similar. Everything's been kind of run the same, just because that's, we all, worked under Coach Hood, and, Drew and I both, ran it very similar to what we grew up in as young coaches. And so a lot of that hasn't really changed, in a sense.
And yeah, and I guess the best way that, I'm obviously kind of, in terms of what the book will focus on, it's a little all over the place right now. Like, it takes time to pull everything in and then tighten it. But I think the best way to describe it to you, that I probably should have done already, or to like your team or something like that, is kind of how you describe, like, y'all came up with your phrase, last year, the big Clay, right? What that those two words together kind of all encompass for y'all. It's a small place, but y'all do big things, right? I think that's kind of the way generally you've kind of described it, or at least to me.
Hmm.
It's kind of that thought, and not just the football program, even though that's going to be obviously at the heart of this, but kind of how that permeates, or how that community in vice versa permeates y'all, and just kind of exploring. Not necessarily looking for an answer. A lot of times, a book or something of length doesn't, it might seek to answer a question, but it doesn't find that answer. Answers are complicated when you're delving into something that big. So it's just kind of exploring that, and what does this place mean to all these people, and why have people like you said, regimes don't necessarily change, or like why you are there now, why someone like Justin Burdett can't get away, why Mayor Webster won't hang it up, why he wants to
Yeah.
continue serving in that role, just different stuff like that. Um, and that story will come out. There will be themes that run through everybody's stories that that people will see similarities in, and it's something that I've wanted to really look at for a long time. I've always wanted to do a high school football book, and I think Clay for me is just kind of that. It's that place that I would want to do it on. Like I was telling, I don't remember who I was talking to, but like it wasn't too long ago. T West is playing in that new league for that Ohio team, and I'm like, I haven't covered Terrell in high school football since he went down with the injury in 2014 when y'all won the title. And this is just, I don't know, maybe a month or so ago. And he texted me one day and it was just a link to that I forget the name of the league, but the league's like media credentials like page. And he's like, here's this link if you want to come cover us. And I'm like, no disrespect to any other team I've ever covered, whether it be Hewitt, Clay, Pinson, any of the over the mountains, whatever. I'm like, nobody does that. Nobody does
Yeah.
that. But and there's been multiple stories like that from kids at that school. And I'm like, why is that? And that's kind of what I'm driving at is why is that? And that's really what I want to get at.
Yeah. That's good.
So I don't know. But, it'll be let's how about the football stuff? Because I talked to Kent Babb a lot about this. Now Kent Babb he's probably more of, from what I learned, he's probably more of a football junkie than I am. But he had to learn the lingo. Y'all gonna share some film with me and break it down and help me understand what in the world I'm looking at?
Yeah. We can do that.
You're
We
gonna
can get
go
you a
over
huddle account.
you're gonna get me okay. Is it all uploaded there? Is that how y'all do it?
Oh yeah.
So I can like go in like once we get to August and whenever y'all upload stuff, I can go back and like rewatch like a full game, or how's it work?
Yeah. I mean, we upload stuff pretty much every day.
And you're gonna teach me what I'm watching from the drone and everything?
I don't know if I'll teach you that, but there'll be somebody.
Who are you gonna delegate to? Who gets the
I don't
unfortunate
know.
assignment?
Well, we'll get a young guy in there because I mean it's good for them to kind of talk through
That's
that, and
that's true.
yeah, yeah, we're just
That's
growing them.
that's true. That's true. Well, so a young guy. I'm wondering who I might get. Um, I want to talk about a little because I've started it and I've been highlighting like crazy, but me and you have kind of talked about this a little bit, but off-season focus. Right now we're still early in spring, I know, but off the field, uh, that book.
Yep.
Tell me about it. How you chose it, how you learned about it, and what y'all have done with it.
Yeah. So I actually read that book when I was at Trustful, probably I don't know 2019 maybe, no, probably 2018.
Okay.
We read that as a staff, and it was good. It was really good. But I just thought our team this year, we needed something to kind of give us some guidance on leadership. And I just, remembered that book and a lot of the principles it taught in it. And it's just, we basically took, 10 or 11 coaches and we assigned pretty much a leader, to each coach, and then each leader got to draft two kids that he trusted to be on his team. And then we put, the remaining 7 guys on his team. And so now, each coach has his own team and they're all random players. They're not, any particular position. And so we read basically 2 chapters a week. And then we would have about a 45-minute session where, I would kind of talk to the whole team as a whole and talk about maybe some of the key points of the chapters. And then, each group would break off with their coach, and then the coach would go through the two chapters with them and get some feedback from the players. Each week I would pull a different coach. I would pull him and his group into my office and just kind of sit in on that conversation, and just kind of watch, because it's hard to, you know, see all the growth going on in all the groups. But it was good, man. There was a lot of there were some kids that were not selected as leaders per se, that really um, kind of found their voice in that book, and I think you could kind of see some of the wheels turning. That a lot of the principles that this team goes off of started to kind of click in their head, and just a lot of the processes, and you got the whole sweep the sheds mantra that they use, and just a lot of that stuff that they use, and not being really outcome oriented, more focusing on the next thing, and just there were so many things that are in that book that hopefully we can kind of weave throughout our team chemistry this season.
Was it like, I know you said you remembered that book like from when you were over at Hewitt, but like was there something between the end of last year and starting, off-season workouts and all that this spring, like was it like, hey, we just want to do this, or did you remember this book as like, hey, I saw something at the end of last year, this is a need for us?
Yeah, I thought at the end of last year, when you get done with the season, you kind of reflect on the season. Um, and I thought leadership, really was, we tell the kids like, hey, it's got to be more than just your coaches that are leading this team, right? It's been proven, scientifically, I guess, that player led teams go further, and we teach that, we believe that, and so we were stressing that, in the season last year, but it just didn't seem like it ever really, caught hold, to where, like, all right, we got some guys that are kind of that we can really lean on to guide this team in any direction. It just seemed like it was, constantly coaches having to do that and pull it out of them, and not their fault. I think the big thing is, one of the things that I've learned from that book is that you've got to put these kids in like you have to teach leadership, right? It's not
Yeah.
Leadership is not a natural thing, a natural characteristic that people possess. I guess people say, and there's natural born leaders, but I don't know if that's entirely true. I think maybe there are some things about your personality that help you speak in certain situations, but I think it's lessons learned and taught that, and really being observant of situations to where, all right, this is a time for me to speak, right? This is a time, like I had this conversation with Aaron the other day. We're at practice, and there's a lot of college coaches out there, and they're watching him throw, and and I know there's pressure on him because he wants to make every throw perfect, right? Just because I think in his mind it's like, well, if every throw is not perfect, then they're not, I'm not going to get an offer from them or whatever.
Right.
I know I've been there. Um, and some kid dropped the ball, and he's losing it on him. I'm like, buddy, like they don't they want to see how you respond in a drop. It was a perfect ball. The kid
Yeah.
dropped it, and now they want to see how you act in that moment. And so don't miss that moment of, building your teammate up, because I think that will go further than you just, flying off the handle and yelling at the kid
Yeah.
for dropping the ball.
Yeah.
Like maybe if it's the third time in a row, like, all right, well, maybe now we can get in his tail a little bit. But, the first time, the second time, like, that's the time where you build them up. And so I think it's little moments like that we as coaches have to teach leadership. I think there's moments throughout practices and the weeks of summer and fall that we can really kind of impute kind of the way the coach is thinking and put that into some kids' heads, especially some mature players, to kind of grab that focus of the team, if you will.
Yeah. I was, I posted a couple like of my crappy photos from the other day because like most of these guys don't know who I am yet. They started to learn a little bit pretty quick Thursday night and Friday that like so the messages come in on Instagram that hey, did you take any photos of me? And I'm like, look, guy, you're gonna get introduced to me soon, but I'm not a photographer. I'm documenting kind of for posterity for myself, so I can go back and be like, what all did I see that day? It's my version of film. But I was like, I'm not a photographer, but I got like 6 different guys that messaged. And then there's one in particular, I won't name him, but there was one in particular who we messaged back and forth a little bit. And I had posted like on my like Instagram story a picture of this book and just said homework tonight, reading this tonight, whatever. He responded and just said, yes, sir, with like 4 R's. And I said, I'm playing catch up. I said, what were your favorite parts of the book? He said chapter 5, which I'm not to yet. I'm in the chapter on purpose, and he was talking about the chapter on learn. I'm curious, like when you had those meetings with the different accountability groups or leadership groups or whatever, was there like a particular area of the book or a characteristic that most of them gravitated to, or was it pretty all over the board?
Yeah, I would say it's pretty all over the board. One of the big themes in the book is just when you're talking about purpose. Obviously, you've got to find your purpose of why you're playing, but I think they got to see how much pride that those guys that played on the All Blacks team have in that jersey that they wear,
Yeah.
for their country, for that organization. And, for me, it's can I get them to understand that playing at Clay is the same thing, right? We used to have a somewhat of a history of like a lineage of there was always a running back that wore number 5, right? And so you know, back in the day, other teams couldn't tell, like, did that guy ever graduate or what? Like, that guy's been playing running back for like 12 years now.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that things like that, just having pride in where you're from, the jersey that you wear, and then and leaving that jersey in a better place than you found it. I think kind of resonated with the kids a little bit.
How do you get them to like fully buy into that? Like the leaving your jersey better than you found it, leaving the program better than you found it. Like there's only so much you can do, but like how do you kind of get them to kind of take that idea and run with it?
Yeah, I think that's something that it's got to be constantly fed to them. That's got to be something that's in your messages, after practice type deals that you're just constantly reminding them that, the next groups are watching them and kind of give them, really the spiel about how they're setting the standard and the blueprint and really you got the ninth grade looking at them and the middle school looking at them and the park kids and and it's things like helping out at kids camps in the summer, and they kind of get that connection to younger kids, and at some point I think you subconsciously just kind of take on that, responsibility of, well, man, they're really kids, looking at me in this particular way. And so I do need to, leave this in a better place than I found it.
Yeah. So is I've seen some of like I can't remember if I saw like Twitter or something, but is the is that all blue thing? Is that kind of just a reference like in your own way to All Blacks? That's kind of like the
Yeah.
I don't want to call it like the season theme unless that's what y'all are calling it, but was that kind of the idea?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's definitely a spinoff from that. And, you know, for us, the all blue thing is like, we're only concerned with Clay-Chalkville. We're not concerned with anybody else. I wouldn't say that, we need, all of these people to come to our school to make us, who we are, right? We became who we are with what we had. That was the people that, were already there. And so really for us, it's just, you can't really be concerned about what everybody else is doing. Just be concerned about us and the things that we do every day, and all that stuff, all of our goals and all that stuff will take care of itself.
If it ends up at the end of this, whenever that is, months and months and months from now, um, what's a better title on the surface, All Blue or Big Clay? And would I be allowed to have either?
Yeah, I mean, I would say either. I would say either, and
You ain't got
I
it
don't know that
copyrighted?
one, huh?
I said you ain't got it copyrighted or anything?
Well, I've got it. It's been sent off to the U.S. Patent Office, but I hadn't heard back yet from them.
Well, that stuff comes with time. A lot of people will think that about a book. They're like, "Oh, you're starting on a book. What's it going to be called?" And I'm like, "I know that comes at the very start of the book. It's on the cover, but that's kind of the thing that comes last. Like
Really?
you got to tell the story first, and then like I don't want to pre-write it in my head. That's like if I went into one of y'all's games and you know wrote the game story of what I think's going to happen before y'all even kick off, and then guess what? It's not going to transpire the way I wrote it. Like
Probably not. Probably not.
it comes at the end. So anyway, yeah. So I'll be seeing y'all a lot. Anything else going on in high school football? What outside of my little selfish spiel here of working on a book about you guys is going on?
Well, I mean, you've got several things. I think you've got the NIL stuff. You've got especially in Jefferson County, the major to minority thing, which I don't know a whole lot about.
I don't either.
Um, uh, and then obviously the transfer task force, all that stuff is going on as well. So I mean,
I
there's
have
plenty.
Yeah, I have heard a little bit about that one. I don't know if you saw that podcast with a couple head coaches, Coach Yeager over at Mountain Brook and Coach Sessions down at Alma Bryant, but that was
Yeah, I
interesting.
did. Yeah, I did. I did get a chance to watch a little bit of it. It interesting is a good word. I think when you you get it down to a micro level like they did, um, it can look one way, but I think when you kind of zoom out and take that 25,000 foot view of it, it's pretty big, as far as all the different sports, that have a very similar issue going on. I think winning is contagious for a lot of kids. Um, And so it doesn't really matter the sport. I think you could take, you know, let's say, Thompson football or Clay-Chalkville football, any place that's historically won a lot and is in the mix and, has, championship pedigree a lot of times. There are going to be kids that try to move there for whatever reason, whether that be, you want to win a championship or you want to maybe get recruited or whatever to go to college. You take a Hewitt Trustful softball, right? They've won what,
Yeah,
4 championships in 5 years?
like 5. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, they have a similar issue, right? There's girls that want to get in that program. I mean, I could name a lot of different schools and programs that have done. You take Oak Mountain Soccer or
yeah,
Springville Soccer, whatever. I mean, their girls have won back-to-back championships, and
yeah.
so
Mountain
I
Brook
think
basketball. I mean, there's a ton of them.
yeah, I mean, Mountain Brook basketball notoriously for the last 30 years. I mean, what was that guy's name? Tyrus Boswell. I mean, that was,
No,
you don't know?
no.
I mean, that was late 90s with Malin Kent, right? That's the
You're
guy that
you're
he went
you're
to Mississippi State.
you're speaking a bit before my time.
Well, Gary, it's been going on for a long time.
I've
So,
I've I've been
um,
doing trustful history, like I said. I gotta have to catch up on
well,
Mountain Brook hoops.
yeah, well, there's been quite a few that have moved there for whatever reason, and so
Sure.
the thing that's not so simple is they kind of painted this picture of people are not transient, and that's not true. When are we talking about the transient? Are we talking about in high school, or are we talking about elementary
Mm.
school, middle school? Like, people move to communities all the time, right? I mean, just I live here in Trussville. I guess you live in Trussville.
Mm.
Pretty much everybody I know is not from Trussville, right? I got friends that have moved from Mobile, from Huntsville, wherever, and they just all kind of settle in this place, right? I moved to
Yeah.
Birmingham. This was somewhat affordable, and we just settled here. I know tons of people that have done that. But there's people that do that in all communities, right? So it's not just
Yeah.
here. There's people that, they move to Gardendale and settle down or move to Helena, just good communities that got good schools or whatever. And so that goes on everywhere. Um, but the thing that's difficult, especially, you've got these coaches and their staffs looking into this data. The place where I'm at, right?
Mm.
That culture is entirely different than it is at Mountain Brook, right? You can't, like, we're talking about two opposite ends of the spectrum.
So like
Okay.
two so like two different communities, or like one community can be more transient than the other.
Yeah.
Is
So,
that is
like,
that kind
just
of what you're
where,
saying?
yeah, I mean, just where I'm at Clay-Chalkville High School.
Mm.
I would say kids at Clay and Centerpoint and Huffman and Penson, all of these people, they all know each other. They've all got relatives that live in this place or that place, and there's a lot of moving that goes on in a kid's, 7 or 8 years, 9 years in school. There's a lot of movement that happens. I would say that just at Clay, I know that we get a lot of kids from the west side of Birmingham, right? It may be, Jackson Olin or Minor or Fairfield, wherever. Um, they're like, I don't want to live on this side of the city. I want to live on this side of the city. My cousin, lives over here, get whatever.
Sure.
Um, and so the culture and the community, especially the African American community, is way different than your Mountain Brook community, right? Your Helena community. And so it's not as simple as it sounds in a number, right? It's just
Sure.
I think you've got to kind of take it community by community.
Well, there's like anything, like people want black and white. I like to live in the gray. There's a lot of nuance to things that people like to bypass, but like so taking the because like when we did that
Lost you.
podcast, huh? What? Did it cut out on me? Can you hear me?
I
Can
got nothing. Can you hear me?
I can.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, good. I can hear you.
What happened?
I don't know. So we who knows? Me and you can't figure out this technology. I don't know.
I don't like it. I don't
You
like
remember
it.
that one time you had the fireworks going up because you gave thumbs
Oh
up, and I
yeah.
was like, "What is this about?" It's not
Yeah.
doing it now. I don't know. I think that's because it was on your phone. But uh,
Yeah, probably.
anyway, I forgot where I was gonna go with that. Where I was gonna ask, is it like? Oh, I know what I was gonna say. Like, obviously, when I talked to them, like we weren't talking about particular schools. Um, there's really not a reason to like because then anything you say is muddied with well that's just sour grapes that kind of thing. You're kind of getting at whatever rule is in the handbook or whatever rule you want to be altered or created or whatever it might be. So like removing any emotion of this program that program out of it, is there anything in your mind that can be done to I don't even know how to phrase it. Like I don't want to say level the playing field. Like is there anything that makes things clearer or is there something obvious out there that needs to be done?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say, this is the answer, right? I think you've got to kind of look at some other states maybe that have different ways, like for instance in Texas, I think the whole region has to sign off on a kid transferring. And maybe it's something like that. I do think um, the thing in Dragonfly marking them whether they're a transfer or not. I do think that's kind of a step in the right direction. But I think you get a lot of pushback from people that are like, look, you're supposed to have put your roster in Dragonfly, and we come across teams all the time that don't do that, right? And
Oh, I know
so,
it. I know that.
like, what's the penalty going to be, and how do we like if you don't mark that they're a transfer, like what? How do they know they're not a transfer? You know what I mean? And so I think there's a lot of
One
questions.
and maybe this was in there and I'm just I'll plead ignorance, but like the what is a transfer? Like is it just since last year? Is it, hey, you moved in
Yeah,
fourth? Did you move in fourth grade? Did you move in ninth grade? And now you're a senior? Like, where maybe that's in there and I just don't know it, but where where does that start?
yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either. That's a good question. Because like for me, Aaron is our quarterback. He transferred in, I guess, eighth grade. So he went to Clay all the way K through 7. His parents decide to move to Springville for his older brother to, get a shot at playing and kind of being the guy. And so he transfers his eighth grade year. Ninth grade comes back to Clay in 10th grade. And so is he deemed a transfer now? Or the fact that that was his home school, like, well, how do you proceed with that? Those are things I don't know,
Yeah,
because we do get some kids that they'll go to Clay for forever and then they'll go to Penson for a year and come back,
yeah,
or vice versa. It's just those lines are so close that that stuff happens pretty frequently.
Yeah.
One side of the street may go to Penson or Center Point, and the other side of the street goes to Clay or Huffman, right? I
Yeah.
mean that those lines are that tight, and so I, a lot of times these people, they move. I wouldn't say they don't necessarily, live in the house for 30 years, right? That people don't do that
Yeah.
a lot anymore. Uh, people move all the time. Like
Yeah.
you just take Trustful where we live. It's
Mhm.
like a new neighborhood pops up, and everybody's like, "I want to go live in that neighborhood." That's the
Oh my
fun
God.
neighborhood, right? And so you get people moving all the time, which
Yeah.
I hate moving, so I would never do that. But a lot of
Yeah.
people do.
Yeah. We don't need any more neighborhoods. I need, they can shut that down, close it off. We're capped.
Yeah.
We're full occupancy here. But I think like for me, like not being a coach, obviously, just being some guy who goes to games. Um, I'm kind of with you on like the T showing up in Dragonfly. So like at least there's like a transparent like because I know especially the last couple years, like when it gets to, I mean, I've seen some of it in the summer, but like especially when you get to a season where you're going to cover this team, that team, whatever, and you're like, oh, this kid plays for this school now. Like, well, that preseason preview article I wrote that had him for this team is completely crap now, At least there's that
Yeah.
transparency of like knowing like, kid X now plays at school B and that kind of thing. And that will tell people, I don't want to say what they need to know. It's just a number, and like there's like I said before, there's nuance to those numbers, Or some kids moving just because they want to play at this school, sure. Are some people moving because they had to? Yes, there are different reasons. I'm just in favor of more transparency in that way without getting into what Rush had to do, whatever that was at Pell City, where I forget the particulars, but Pell City ends up putting out this whole statement about why this kid had to come, and I think that's a bit too far when you're having to explain individual kids why they chose to come to this school or why they had to come to this school and that kind of thing. That's a bit much, but a little bit of transparency never hurt anybody.
No, I don't think so. I think the alarms go off when you've got, massive amounts of talent and stars moving in at one time.
Yeah,
And in particular moving into places that maybe haven't really won before. And so
mm,
you're like, well, why are they going there? You know what I mean?
sure,
Like I could understand if they go to this school or that school, because there's a history and it's been a good program for, X amount of years, but like this one is new and hasn't won anything. And so what's the appeal? Those are kind, and not just in football, those are, several sports.
sure,
And so that's kind of the alarm start going off. Um, and then, like for me, like I counted 9 kids transferred, to our school last year that played football on our team last year. 4 of the 9 played in varsity games, um, and the other 5 did not. And
yeah,
so, and I don't think any kid had a star to his name. Not that they were bad players, but
sure. There are great high
there's
school
a
football players that have no stars for sure.
yeah, and these kids are like, these kids aren't moving from, 60 miles away to come play at our school. This is like they maybe live on the other side of the street of, the Clay and Pinson zone or Center Point zone, whatever. They don't live far proximity wise, but you've got kids moving 60 miles to go to this school or that school, and who knows? And it's a
Yeah.
complex issue. But when you've got seven, I mean, look, 7-on-7 to me is a natural breeding ground for this issue, right? We can say, all you want to about the parents talking to the parents or trainer, whatever. But when you get kids playing with other high caliber kids,
Yeah.
there's a natural appeal like, hey, this quarterback's really good. My quarterback's terrible or whatever, and somebody's in this
Sure.
kid's ear like, man, you ain't gonna get the ball at your school, you might want to go to this school. There's a natural appeal and there's a chemistry and a friendship that you develop. These kids play together for I don't who knows how long, 7-on-7. I feel like it's year round now. But they play together, they go on all these trips out, these different cities, and they form these relationships with each other. And so naturally, I think there's a inclination of wanting to play with each other, and so that's a huge breeding ground, right? And then you take in recruiting, right? You say, look, let's say for instance, Ryan Williams at Saraland, he's a huge recruit, and then all of a sudden, he's meeting, this kid from this school in Tuscaloosa, right? They're on the same recruiting trip,
Yeah.
and so things like that there's just these natural relationships form that are uncontrollable. Like I don't know how the AHSA would be able to monitor that and control. You can't, right? Those are
Right.
just the access and the access the kids have, with social media. They're
Hmm.
friends with all. Like I wasn't friends with anybody from another school when I was in high school. I didn't know anybody from another school, right?
Yeah.
And these kids all they know everybody that goes to everywhere,
Hmm.
and so it's different, right? It's
Yeah.
different than the good old days are not the good old days anymore. Those days are gone, and you can say what you want to, but it's just different, right? The connections that people have with each other, the kids have with each other, the things that they play on. They're able to play with different kids from all over the state and make different relationships. And so I think it's just going to be tough to kind of, rein that in a way. You've got the portal, which, we've talked about before, how college,
Hmm.
trickles down into high school. I
Yeah.
mean, it's the same thing, right? I mean, even in professional sports, over the last 20 years, there has been the the need to create super teams, right? In the NBA, I mean, you've had LeBron's tried to create every super team he could to try to win, and obviously, I'm not a LeBron fan, so I don't care. The dude's soft, whatever.
Agreed.
Um, yeah, I mean, but there's you take the Celtics or the Heat or the Warriors or whoever, or you go in the Major League Baseball. I mean, you get the Yankee. I mean, the Yankees are they try to buy the best roster that money can buy, right?
Dodgers
Um,
too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean the Dodgers. You go in the NFL. I mean, it's what quarterback can get linked up with two superstar receivers. I mean, it is the nature of the game is to number one, you don't have time to wait and like let's just wait and hope we build it. It's the immediacy of we need success, right? That's
Hmm.
the culture we live in. My wife orders something on Amazon, that crap shows up in 3 hours on my doorstep. And so, we order groceries and they show up at our house.
Yeah.
And so the immediacy that we live in our culture, it reflects that in high school sports, right? You've got
Yeah.
uncles and aunts, moms and dads. Look, we ain't got time to wait and see, if your quarterback's any good. This quarterback's good over here. Let's go over there. And so I think that's what you get, and that goes for every sport.
Yeah. And I don't know that it's happened or not in any sport, but like the example I've used since I guess it was 2023 was before we knew that the kid from Spain Park, Jared Smith, I've said this story a billion times, but when he transferred to Thompson, the thought was, all right, if it's a bona fide move, he can play. Like he's eligible. Like as soon as his name pops up in Dragonfly on Thompson, he can play. And I asked Coach Freeman about it in a podcast about a year ago, and we talked about it a lot. I mean, I'll give Mark all the credit in the world. We talked about it a lot more than I thought he would want to. But he's good at stuff like that. He is, and my initial thing before he even, probably was in class at Thompson was, wait, he could play for Spain Park against Hoover and then play for Thompson against Hoover in the same regular season, play 2 region games against the same opponent for 2 different schools. I was like, that's crazy. And I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
There was something icky about that. And I know, Mark said like he never played it down. We didn't play him. We didn't want him to go through that. We didn't want if we won the championship, quote unquote, because of him, for people to say, oh, well, you just went out and got this guy that helped you win. I get all that. But I was like, wait, could we actually have, like, they could have if they wanted to? And it
That's
seemed like,
happened.
see, that's what I would like to know. And that's the thing that I think that's what's crazy to me is if a kid, especially like you mentioned the social media part and that kind of, we're as connected as we've ever been, while being, to me, the most disconnected we've ever been.
Yeah.
2 different meanings, but they're happening simultaneously. Is that, what if there is a kid that is at X school, and let's say he's a great, I don't know, let's say he's a great, oh gosh, a great running back, and his team through 5 weeks is they're just not it, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but he knows this quarterback and this receiver on this other team, and they're looking legit. And he's like, I know them from 7-on-7, from Instagram clips. Hey, we send each other funny TikToks. I don't know. And he's like, I'm going to move and we're going to meet up with those guys and we're going to go on this run. And he makes a bona fide move 2 weeks later and he can start playing, and he's there week 9 and through the playoffs. That's what I'm like, okay, there's something there that's like, not, that doesn't sit right with me, that it's like in season and you could, and I get this, it's incredibly rare or has barely happened or never happened, whatever. But if that's a possibility, that just shouldn't be a possibility to me.
No, I'm good with I think the rule they passed where, once the first game starts, you transfer, you can't play. I I think I think most people are good with that.
Yeah,
Is there a rare circumstance that, this incredible 3 or 4 star moves in that you've never heard of? I mean, I guess, but it's
yeah.
never happened to me.
Super rare,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so actually it has happened. I, I just forgot about somebody. Well, that was that trustful though. So there you go. You never know.
Trying to
But
think
yeah,
now.
I don't think I think if it's just like the portal. The portal closes, the season happens, nobody's moving until
Yeah,
the portal opens again, right? I think there's
yeah,
a window that maybe because for the conversation that we're having, parents are timing this like, hey, the semester's over, December's happened, grades are posted, finalized.
sure.
If we're going to make a move, it's time to make a move. I think, any parent that's wanting to get their kids somewhere, they're going to do that, in June because
Yeah,
you don't want to miss it all summer. And so the rare case that it happens in August, I would think would be pretty rare.
pretty rare.
And
Yeah.
so I think most people would agree that, look, once the season starts, man, like it is what it is. If you happen
Yeah,
to move and your parents get transferred, I'm sorry, I don't know. I don't know what proof you could come up with to make it, to where it's a reasonable case that they should consider.
yeah, yeah. So it sounds like more than anything that T showing up in Dragonfly is I guess for the general public or for people who care about high school football, whatever, that's pretty much it. Like you'll be able to see that, hey, this kid wasn't necessarily quote unquote a homegrown kid, or these 12 kids or 4 or 19, however many there are. Like it's just kind of a public knowledge thing more than anything, and from that, as people will do, they will just draw their own conclusions.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. I don't know.
It's such an interesting. Like I talked to several coaches after that podcast came out that just kind of wanted to chat about it, and I'm like, I don't really know what to say. Like y'all are in it. I'm not. I just asked some questions and tried to learn, a little bit myself, since, like I'm not in charge of 85 kids after school and leading them through practice and knowing their home life and what's going on in their life. But it's, for whatever reasons, it's remains and will remain a very interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah, and I don't know it's something you can really rein in unless you do something really drastic, Like I think in Arkansas they had a rule to where I think if you transferred to a private school that you had to sit out the whole year. Like you just couldn't, it didn't matter. You just had to sit out the entire year. And so
Wow.
I think it would take some drastic measures, which, if you want to do that, do that. I think you're going to get pushback from people and, say that kids are going to leave the state or whatever. But, if you're wanting the true, I'm only playing with my kids in my community, then you're going to have to take some drastic measures.
Yeah. Do you think there's like I forget, I was talking with a coach about this, and like the multiplier that you mentioned, private schools, like the multiplier that they have, like the example I always think of is uh I think it's Briarwood, like cross country. Like they're so good that with that multiplier they move up, and now, okay, congrats, you get to run against 6A schools now, like Mountain Brook. Like good luck, you've had enough success, you move up. Is there like there's no way to ever do that in like a football or a basketball, right? Where it's based on y'all's enrollment numbers, but X school gets X number of transfers, and by God, their success rate goes through the roof. They're not going to move them up. Like, there's no possibility of like this 4A school now becomes a 5A school, this 5A becomes a 6A because of that success, is there? That's crazy outlandish, right?
I don't think it's that outlandish. I mean, but I think people would be okay with that if, like, you just say, hey, it's open. Like, wherever you want to go to school.
Oh, yeah,
Right. I think everybody would be like, yeah, like if that's the case and I can go out and get this player or that player and build a roster, then who cares what classification we are, But
yeah,
I don't know that that would happen. I don't know that you could police it in every sport, in every classification.
no,
I don't know, it's like, well, how much did those transfers actually contribute to your winning? Like how do you define it?
yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's a
It's
possibility.
it's such a weird deal. It's kind of, like how do you define it? Like it's, it depends on what your definition of the word is.
Yeah. I think there's some. I don't know. I just there's a lot of things I think you could try to do to combat it. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. With the whole school choice thing, that could open it in a different direction,
Yeah,
So who knows, man?
man, it's weird, weird times as usual.
Yeah.
You gonna, you gonna, am I gonna get an introduction to these guys on your squad? So like, as much as I don't, I like to I kind of like to just blend in and kind of be where I'm at and do what I need to do. But all these guys think I'm a social media photographer. I had to tell like six guys like I'm not about the photos. I'm about the words. You gonna tell them what I'm doing so that they know who I am?
Yeah, we'll give you a formal introduction.
A formal introduction. How's that gonna go?
I don't know. We'll find out. We'll find out tomorrow.
Post practice or whatever.
Yeah, it'd be post practice.
Okay. Okay. You just gonna tell them, or do I need to give like a little bit of what my idea is and why I'm doing it?
If you want to do that, you can do that.
Okay. I just want them to understand, and I need to I need to start making. I don't want to say as quickly as possible. That's not what I want to say. Like I have to make some connections with some of these guys since me and you done got gray. So like I used to look more like these guys when I covered them, and I don't look that way anymore. I'm just another old guy on the sideline. But uh, gotta make some connections and build some trust with these guys and that kind of thing, and build out the relationships. And that's a lot harder these days than it used to be for me.
Well, I was going to say, if you're wanting them to understand, good luck. They're 16 and 17. They don't understand very much.
I'll hold hands as I go. There is that. You have to do that at times too, doing something like this. Like
Yeah,
you ask a lot of open-ended stuff, but if someone gets off the track a little bit, you just kind of nudge them back onto track a little bit.
that's right. There's a
I had
lot of
to.
that going on.
Oh, I had to do. I mean, it's funny because like you said, they're 16, 17 years old. It's really hard to do. Well, I just came off interviewing people who are 86, 87 years old, and I'm here to tell you that's impossible as well because
They're on a different track.
they're on a different track. But like every memory they got is coming at you, and you're like, hold up, you were just talking about 1951, now you're talking about last week. Let's rein this in. And 3 hours later you've got a recording that's 3 hours long that you've got to somehow go through, piece together, and turn it into something not coherent, but something that is cohesive and flows.
That
And
that flows. Yeah.
yeah, so work's cut out, but I'm up for it, and it'll be good. I'm excited to do it and to cover a season in a much different way. I think I've been heading toward this track for a long, long time. Because I think I really like doing the community type stuff as it ties in to the football stuff. Like, and in a way you've written one game story, you've written all the game stories, and it just gets boring. You ask y'all the same question after every game. How was the offense tonight? You talk. How was the defense tonight? You talk. What was good? What was bad? And it's just like y'all know what to
There's no
expect.
depth. There's no depth to it.
There's zero depth to it. It's surface level, and it's such a transactional thing. Like, good. He said just enough that I need. I can throw a couple of these things in, and I'm done. I can go home. I'm kind of excited to get away from that at least for a season and do something different and that has depth.
Well, you'll have quite the material, and I'm not sure what this book will be rated if they put a rating system on it. uh,
Clean it up a little bit. No, no,
yeah, I
it
thought about the other day when you were at practice. I heard the music, and I was like, "Oh crap, Gary's out here. He's listening to this music. Like, it's not
I
great."
I'm gonna level with you. I had no idea I mean, I heard it, but I had no idea what was playing, and to some degree, I didn't know what was being said.
Yeah, well,
Come on.
that's probably that's good. That's
Well,
good.
that's every school though. That's something I'll have to ask these guys. Like what? Like that's a question at some point that I'm sure will come up. What gets you going? Why does it get you going? You know,
You'll be like, "Who the crap is that?" Like I.
And there
I
comes
was
and there comes in my research, and I can find ways to thread these things together. That's
yeah,
that's what
like
I'm charged with.
I had this conversation with a kid the other day. We were, they don't, if it didn't happen within the last 5 years, they have no clue, right? They know nothing from the 90s, and they know very little from 2000 to 2010, which I keep forgetting. And so like I'm like, there's something playing in the weight room. I'm like, who is this? And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's Big X the plug." I'm like, what did you just say? Big
Well,
X the plug.
my wife told me about a song of his that's with a, if people are watching this, a country music guy as well, who I think he's more rock or something. But she was like, "You need to listen to this song," and I was like, I had the exact same reaction. I was like, "Wait, his stage name is what now? What did you say that right? Like Big X the plug?"
Yeah.
Exact same reaction.
Yeah, there's no like outcast. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, but whatever.
Well, see, I'll learn from them. Hopefully they can learn a little bit from me.
Oh,
We'll add some depth to conversations. We'll get a little historical legacy, whatever, in a little bit. Make them think about the answers a little bit more before they speak. And just think about things a little more comprehensively. There you go. I'm educating. Like, what can I say?
well, yeah.
I'm really not. I'm just annoying them until they talk. But I'll say it that way anyway.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you'll get an education as well
Oh, I definitely will. That's
along the
that.
way.
Oh, there's zero doubt. There will be a lot of education. That's what I want to do. Like I want to be. I want to hear from not only this team, but obviously people I've already known as well. That are going to be a part of this too. Not just you, not just some of the other coaches on staff, but community people as well. Heck, teachers. I already mentioned Mayor Webster earlier, Ronnie Dixon, a bunch of people community wide that'll be a part of this as well.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I'm excited to do it. Thanks for letting me hang around, y'all. I'll probably get in the way a whole lot, so apologies in advance, but excited to do it.
Well, we're excited, man. It'll be good.
Appreciate you. I'll see you at practice, coach.
Don't be late. Don't be late.
No, if I learned anything the other day, I don't need to be late. I don't need to mess up. I did learn that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, man. Enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.